Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance into this truth bomb riff. I believe we're up to episodes somewhere in the vicinity of 692. My name is Patrick Lovell. I am the producer with the $71 trillion truth. I'm joined by my colleague, the right hook, in a monumental way from the great, powerful Roseanne Rabiella Mille, coming straight out of Chicago. And we are recording this on Thursday, November 13th, 2025, at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And of course, the news of the day that's going to launch us into this sort of, shall we say, open the door to the answers everybody's looking for amidst so much noise that you can't find the doorknob. And so that's really kind of what this comes down to. So, just to set the stage, Roseanne, there has been some monumental information that has come down the pike regarding Jeffrey Epstein and all things Trump vis-a-vis what the New York Times laid out yesterday that came from, I believe, the congressional investigation that did exactly what the attorney for all of the Epstein victims had suggested about a month ago when I did a truth bomb riff on this. Was A, you're looking in the wrong place for all things suspicious activity reports that would lead to the FinCEN files. He actually said that on the floor, on the steps of Congress, which was amazing. And then, and his last name is Edwards, by the way. But what he had actually telegraphed to the to those in Congress that were led by, I believe, Jamie Raskin and Thomas Massie specifically, and I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, was standing besides them, which, obviously made all of us who have not been a big fan of Marjorie for some time take a double take, and we have been ever since. But what that led to was Edwards had suggested look to the Epstein estate, which suddenly led to, I think, thousands and thousands and thousands of emails, of course, that are proving that the Department of Justice is holding back information that relates to, of course, their heir Trump in chief, what I like to call chump stain. And ultimately, the nature of that is, a monumental cover up today, but in the context of, just it gets more and more clear by the day. I mean, we've all had the pictures. We've seen, that Epstein and Trump had known each other, were friends for a very long time. We've seen all sorts of other information. But as it relates to you and I, but particularly in terms of the kind of, let's just say, the universe that we operate in, because of my work in the con and because I've dealt with some of the highest level legal experts in this country, particularly as it relates to prosecutions for massive crimes, specifically as it relates to white collar crimes that have emanated out of the Department of Justice as well as other regulatory bodies and so forth. And incidentally, I should just address, I find this interesting that I'm saying all of these things when I'm wearing for the first time, a birthday gift to myself, which is a Green Day shirt, which proclaims, I don't want to be an American idiot, which I think is a wonderful way of compartmentalizing this, because I certainly don't want to be an American idiot anymore, and nor have I ever been, and nor have you, my friend. But this was, I think I recorded a couple of days ago with a Foo Fighters shirt, the Nirvana, Green Day, so people kind of understand where I'm coming from back in the day. But I think that is kind of the soundtrack behind all of these things that are happening that overwhelm everybody's understanding of what is and what could be and so forth. And I just want to close the loop on just one last thing as it relates to all things Epstein. A lot of people out there in the podcast world are saying this is the largest cover up in the history of the world. No, it's not. Not remotely. It's not even on really maybe a second tier floor on a giant skyscraper of the information that we've been trying to get to the American people. And, who am I? A guy with a, Green Day t shirt. I'm the producer with a $71 trillion truth. That doesn't make me like better than you or anybody else. I've just done work for a very long time. I know what I'm doing. I've been around the block, and we've got 691 truth bombs that you can look to, not to mention more work. But I don't want to go into the whole composite resume. What I want to do is get to the point, but the point off of this, sort of context, right? That the largest cover up in history, first and foremost. I want you to think about that as you go into this. And I want to just say one last thing about this, right? So The news of the day, in addition to all of the other elements that are crazy that take over, really our cognitive understanding and the flood the zone strategy, where so many people are reacting to so many things, it's hard to kind of keep focus on anything. But what we're proclaiming is we're the only ones with the information that we have behind us that we're going to open the door to, called the Clean New Deal, that have developed a campaign, a plan that is requisite the corruption of Project 2025, based on the $71 trillion truth that we actually have in our hands. And so, for example, I think many of you can relate to this, but doesn't it feel like we're experiencing hundreds of Watergates every day, maybe every moment of every day? And that would be a pretty apt sort of metaphor, right? But when the New York Times lays out over the course of the last 48 hours that Epstein in these emails has iterated that he had information about Donald Trump that could take him down, immediately everybody is like, wow, I wonder what information that could be. Because it would reveal that there is a group of people that are uber rich, uber powerful, that are above the law, that can literally prey on the innocent, is kind of the way they frame this whole thing, right? To be able to be in a situation of this incredibly enormous cover up. Like I said, they continue to say it's the largest cover up in history. But you and I know it's not even that much of a universe of what we're trying to get people to wrap their heads around. So, my friend, open the door.
And the door is this, my brothers, my sisters, my kids, my grandchildren. I come from a time where I lived Watergate. I lived the Saturday Night Massacre. So we're out of time, people. Okay. There ain't no waiting. There ain't no excuses. All right. You don't know us. I want you to know us. I want you to trust us. I want you to care about yourself, about your kids, about your grandchildren, about your city, state, and the country in which you live. And I want you to show your power, and it ain't waving flags or wearing flag lapel pins or pearls. And it ain't saying, I'm going for this party or I'm going for that party, because that ain't where it's at, my friends. Okay? I got no time to wait. I got no time to wait. I've been looking for years. I saw the corruption. I saw the corruption in the media, in the politics, in the churches, in the businesses, in my corner of the world. That's where we all live, okay? We may know this name or that name. That doesn't make any difference, okay? You're in your world. I knew my world, and I knew what was going on was bad. I knew they were lying. I saw them. I heard them. I heard them all lie. I heard them crush people. I heard people with the power and the money. And that's what it comes down to, the power and the money. You got the power, you get corrupted absolutely, positively 29 ways from Sunday. Okay? So you're in your spot. You don't want to speak up. You don't want to say anything. You keep accepting the lies. It's like, yeah, it's okay. They'll do this for me. They'll do that for me. They'll give me a new garbage can. They'll give me free tickets to the circus. They'll get my kid a job. But what do I owe them? Okay. Nobody owns this soul. Nobody owns this mind, which is why, because I was always open to things, because I loved school, no matter how boring the teacher or the nun or the priest or whoever was, no matter what, I opened my mind. I wanted to listen. I wanted to watch this and watch that and go here and go there. And I wanted to do things that made me feel good, that helped other people. I didn't have it great as a kid. I worked all the time. I wasn't watching cartoons and eating Twinkies, you know? I was working in the store. I was doing stuff for my mother because she had, it was always like she had this burden. And there I was always trying to help her, take that burden from her. And I also pushed her and showed her her individual power. When she didn't want to take a particular test to be an insurance broker, I I drove her to the university to go take a damn test. I says, don't let anybody tell you you can't do this or you can't do that. She didn't do that to me. She didn't do that for me. If I said I wanted to be this, she'd say, nah, don't be this, be that, be something lower. Lower my butt, okay? I I wanted to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. And you know what? I can be something bigger. And so can you. And so can you. Why? Because you awaken that power that's inside you. All right? You wake up yourself. Your mother can come on, get up, get up, get up. But if you don't want to get up, you sure as hell ain't getting up, man. You're gonna lay your lazy fucking ass in that bed until hell freezes over, okay? Wake up the power. We have the learning. We have the details. We have this guy over here who I met just on 5 years ago on the internet through emails. Okay, we met personally, but I don't remember it. But we met through words. We met through words. That's how powerful his words were to me. I say, what has this guy got going here? All right. So, August 2020, I watch episode 1 of his docuseries, The Con. What happens? Boom! That's what happens. It opens up. It took all that freaking corruption, all those payoffs, those white envelopes, oh, you got to follow this one and that one. Screw you. You ain't no better than me. You, everybody goes to the bathroom the same way, you know? You go to the bathroom the same way. Nobody's better than anybody else. But you're not going to believe that until you experience and you feel that power. That's what I want. That's what I want. I met him through this new internet. I still call it like TV, right? Oh, yeah, watch him on TV. Okay. I met him that way. And I learned and I learned and I met the people that he knows personally, people I've come to know, people who respect the shit out of him and people who respect me now. I I call them up. Hey, Richard Bowen, and he'll tell you, we'll tell you who these people are. Richard Bowen, exposing one of the biggest criminals. Richard Bowen picks up the phone just like that. Just like that. Why? Because Richard Bowen, he understands his power. He knows when he's talking about ethics and what he did and how his life was crushed. Okay. You gotta wake it up in yourself, baby. I can tell you all the words, and you can say, "Well, I don't know. My sister-in-law looks at this. I'm gonna go over here." Well, fine. You know what? You go ahead, baby. But there ain't no time, and the planet is burning, and people are dying, and they're gonna keep dying. And if you don't have an open mind and you don't look at the cleannewdeal.org, which we put together, and if you don't listen and absorb and check it out, you want to ask questions, ask me, ask him, you can ask him. That's all you got to do. You want to believe somebody else? That's fine. You go right ahead, baby. But I ain't waiting. I got no time. I want you to show that power and make the Clean New Deal reality. For what? For a better life. Not just a better life for me or Patrick or you or your kids, but a better life for people you don't know who are connected with you. We cannot let people burn. We cannot let people starve. We cannot continue on fossil fuels. We cannot have forever fucking private prisons. We cannot have dumbed down education system. We cannot have pastors who got boku bucks and private jets taking money from you. Why are you paying for the lies? Don't listen to their freaking lies. Concentrate. Can you concentrate for a couple of minutes a day? That's it. That's all you got to do, baby. That's all you got to do. Come with us. That's all. And then you tell that one, and they tell this one, and they tell the other one. It's like the commercial. There was a commercial. I think it was for like some kind of shampoo or something. What do I know? All right.
Breck, that was the Breck girl. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember her from my youth. I love the Breck girl, by the way.
Okay. And that shampoo, yuck. I used it once. No, this is not good. Okay. So just because everybody's using it, uh, uh, that don't make it good for me. You gotta use your common sense. You gotta use what's in here. You gotta use what's up there. Okay? That's all. That's all. The time is up, baby. And Patrick, I am now going to let you do the detail stuff.
Well, I want to say thank you for that. I mean, really, you have been the wind and the air underneath the wings of enabling this initiative to soar. Quite frankly, you're a hero. I think you're an unbelievably powerful and inspiring human being. And I loved what you said about nobody owns you because you demonstrate that every single day. But you always choose right over wrong. You do everything you can every single day, demonstrating, giving yourself to making other people get through a bad situation or hole, or you get them out of a jam, and it goes on from there. I mean, you literally are, like I say all the time, Mother Teresa or Mary Magdalene, and I'm just so grateful to know you. But what you just said was all about empowerment. And that's exactly what we have to do to everybody who's lost in translation. I'll start with what I transitioned to Roseanne about initially. So Everybody who's saying that Epstein is the largest cover up in history, Epstein is huge, okay? And he's incredibly important in terms of the story. And quite frankly, that story is getting more and more important by the day as it intersects with what we've been doing. But what you've got to understand is it's just the beginning of the largest rape and pillage in history. And I know that sounds like an incredibly bold statement considering all of the rape and pillage that's happened before in history, but never has there been so many people so interconnected, so set up in a situation that through our collective work, unfortunately, that you can't see for free anymore, but our work called the Con, which is the blueprint for how this whole thing works. And I'll be able to provide information to people if you want to find it. It's going to develop, but it literally is the impetus for you to get your head around everything. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore because the powers that be are going to quash it or, for whatever reason, pull it off the sidelines at the time that it's the most relevant. But that's okay because we're still here with all of the information that took us millions of dollars in years and thousands of hours to be able to aggregate that the entire scope of the American government failed to do that created this situation. Now, what is the situation and why is it so important that we're introducing, again, as we do every day, the Clean New Deal that you can find at thecleannewdeal.org? And just simply, on the other side, for millions of you who were very, very enthusiastic, as you should be, given everything that we've had to go through with No Kings all the way back through April into October, and then ultimately into what became the blue wave last Tuesday night, but that then got a rug pull because of the capitulation by Chuck Schumer and the 8 senators that obviously wanted to rev up or start the government again, given all of the complexities of the thing that are going on. And many people are trying to wrap their head around that and rationalize it, a lot of very smart people. But again, everything that is going on is the result of what it is that we're trying to get you to understand. And because we were able to put together the entirety of what created this insane corruption that we're in the midst of. And as I say throughout most of my truth bombs, and I think we're up to 691 today, or 800. What is the number? Do you know? 800? I forget. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a lot, right? I think we're up to 891, or 892. But the bottom line is that the magnitude of the corruption that Trump is the face of, he's the expression of everything that's happened over the course of the last 20 years, ultimately made possible by this billionaire juggernaut that's created a hostile takeover that took the shape of Project 2025 that was developed by the Heritage Foundation, that created this transactional president that's made out with $5 billion plus, while literally starving 42 million people, in addition to basically delivering a death warrant to fishermen in Venezuela and everything that's coming next. Guys, we're spinning out of control. And it's the end of the line. And there's no way that Donald Trump, after everything we have seen, is going to give up power if he's still alive, first and foremost. But he's not the guy. It's this apparatus that created the guy that took over a hostile takeover of the Supreme Court, that bought Congress a long time ago, that created mega mergers in media to quash the truth and, unfortunately, all of our information. So we've been around the block. We're on this situation every single day, my friends. That feels like it's Groundhog Day, where we're trying to get the message to millions more of you. But at the same time, where if you think of Harry Potter and you think of like the changing staircases and all the different three-dimensional chess to be able to get through this labyrinth and this maze to find your way to whatever is what we would consider the end game, right? That's what we're in the midst of every single day. But the only disconnect is the millions of you who know the system is rigged. Like George Carlin said, that it's a big club and you're not in it, but you don't know who did what, when, how, and what it was for. And that's what we have the answers to. Okay? Like I said before, I'm the producer with the $71 trillion truth. I'm not speaking in hyperbole. I'm not speaking in platitudes. At the Clean New Deal at www.thecleannewdeal.org, especially if you're a journalist. And again, I think I started this conversation by saying that I interact with the likes of the New York Times. on the front page of the New York Times that has all of the information that tens of millions of you guys are paying attention to that they didn't actually deliver 10 years ago, which I actually called the New York Times out on the last time I had an interview with the New York Times. But I operate at the highest levels. I operate with the greatest journalists in our country that still exists, whether it's the ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or ProPublica, or like I said, the New York Times and many others in between, including Bloomberg. Okay, that's enough of my resume for the second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to walk you through the Clean New Deal. And so, Roseanne, I'm going to ask you for a second if you happen to see, it says participants can now see your screen. Do you see this?
Yes, and go to the precepts of the Clean New Deal.
I will, but just want to make sure. What are you seeing on your screen out of curiosity?
Yes, I see the home page.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, folks, when you land at the Clean New Deal, which you can see here, it says Patrick Lovell presents the cleannewdeal.com. So that's
Compliments of Roseanne Rabiola Mealy. Thank you very much.
right on. So that's an easy way to get there, or the cleannewdeal.org. But in either case, you'll see that we have a landing page that explains to you that we don't live in a democracy. We don't function in a capitalistic system. We don't have free markets. The law is unequal. We don't have separation of powers. Corruption rules everything. Millions are beginning to understand the threat of Project 2025. And drum roll, please, the Clean New Deal is democracy's answer. Yes, we're open for conversation. We've got unbelievable information that you can dig through to get perspective, to get context. If you have questions, we're open to anything. But at the same time, we need you to get activated. We're looking for doers who want to rug pull corruption and the fascism it fuels to reboot the American dream. And the way we're going to do that is if you go to the precepts of the Clean New Deal, you will discover how we phrase this, how we position it. The first and foremost is you've got to understand the four questions. So as we present here, number one, what is qualified immunity? Number two, what is judicial immunity? Number three, what is presidential immunity? And by the way, I heard many podcasters yesterday, and this is kind of funny how it's echoing all over independent media. Many people are introducing that this whole thing feels like the emperor's new clothes. And I like to add on really bad acid. And then fourth, what is the Electoral College? When you put those four questions together, as we demonstrate here with the Rubik's Cube, eureka, you win because you understand how the system works, because then you can't be lied to. They can't piss on your head telling you it's rain, expecting you to be the fool in their tool in the fool circus, because that's how you get manipulated. When you don't have clarity, when you can't see the forest for the trees. So just briefly on this, for those of you who are trying to, answer the questions that have tickled your brain at the moment, simply put, qualified immunity allows the police to murder with impunity and not be held accountable for that. As I've described in many truth bombs before, I believe that the police should be able to shoot to kill, of course, particularly in situations like the J6 insurrection. And we all know what didn't happen in that situation. What we're talking about are dirty cops, cops that can set people up, plant drugs on them, do whatever torture and terrorism that they might be up to basically shoot somebody in the back and carry out murder at will without being held accountable. That would put them above the law, which is antithetical to the notion of liberty and justice for all, where all men are created equal. Thank you very much. What is judicial immunity? The same thing. We could talk about all sorts of different, nuances of the technocracy. The technocracy, in so much as the appeals court and, of course, the appellate courts and the federal courts and so forth, which have been holding the line against Trump, and I understand that. But SCOTUS has sold us out completely, and we have a plan to deal with that. What is presidential immunity? Like, I have to ask, given everything where millions and millions of people have come to the streets through no kings, we know that there are no kings in the United States. And to have this madman, what I like to call the Mad Magazine, flying circus version of the Mad King, quite frankly, is ridiculous. But it's happening right before our eyes. And yes, Donald Trump might be losing his mind completely. He's an idiot, like many of us, obviously react to every single day. But he's an idiot in charge of the government with ICE in the streets and getting away with $5 billion and more. And the question is, who's the idiot? The American people that allowed this to happen. So you've got to get galvanized and you've got to spread the word, because the Electoral College is another perversion inverse that we can talk about at length, and we will. But moving forward in the precepts of the Clean New Deal, first and foremost, my friends, everything is about money in our society. I'm sorry, if you want to be independent and you want to go live on the land somewhere in the desert where you can manufacture your own food, your own safety and shelter, your own clothes and everything else, good luck. Most of us can't even, do the basics besides get on our phone all day, every day, right? So good luck to 99.9% of the population trying to be completely independent. We all have to function within our society, and the lifeblood of our society and our structure, and everybody is under the thumb, no matter who you are, is money, right? Now, some of us obviously have a lot more than others, and we can use it to control everybody else, and that's part of the problem. So the first precept of the Clean New Deal is we have to create a new Glass-Steagall Act to separate commercial banking from investment banking. But the most important thing is to have a new statute that summarizes what we've been trying to get the American people to understand, and the largest cover-up, quite frankly, the largest racketeering enterprise in the history of the world, the largest gang rape in the history of the world, and ultimately the largest cover-up in the history of the world, that leads to the $71 trillion truth that I continue to reveal to you. The bottom line is that only happened because all of the laws that are supposed to regulate our financial system were thrown out like the baby with the bathwater in the aftermath of the great financial crisis, because the government's credibility and integrity collapsed to save the uber rich. So we have to have a new statute that everybody in the country gets hip to, that you can't use the full faith and credit of the United States under exigent lending circumstances, which is emergency lending circumstances, to float global criminality through racketeering. And by the way, it does say that in the statutes that were created in 1933 when we created the Federal Reserve Act 13.3, although it goes back earlier, but it came into fruition with these particular statutes when the guys that did the deep dive and what created the Great Depression realized that you've got to, first of all, align interest, but you can't have investment banks gambling with other people's money in commercial banks. That's a recipe for disaster, because of the way the financial system works. Guys on the inside can get paid fees by lying, stealing, and deceiving, which is called deception, which is racketeering. And that's what they did to blow up the global economy in 2008, that we didn't provide $700 billion, which most people at the time thought we were in the midst of. We provided $33 trillion in 2009, an additional $16 trillion in quantitative easing, and there's a way that works, to purchase liar's loans and toxic assets made by crime, by the too big to fail apparatuses run by criminals, which we might consider the Dons, that got away with bearing tens of millions of Americans and raped and pillaged them all day long with the honey trap of liar's loans to give people shelter and safety and soundness, which is the idea of our economy, to pad their wallets through this whole facade that ultimately, when the world blew up, we paid them tens of trillions of dollars illegally. So we've got to recreate the Glass-Steagall Act to make sure that that can never happen again. And to those of you who fancy yourself legal experts who say, well, what about Dodd-Frank? Dodd-Frank didn't do the job. And what's going on right now is the exact same thing that blew up the 2008 great financial crisis. But instead of talk about housing and subprime, let's talk about AI or commercial loans or any car loans through the entire shadow sector that are all playing the same game. And if you're an expert and you want to talk to me and you want to get involved with all the details, I can assure you it's all over this document. So I welcome anybody with a PhD behind their name or so-called experts from any university in this country. And I'd like to record with you, especially if you're from media, because I'd like to ask you the question, why didn't you reveal the truth? If you were at CBS 60 Minutes, if you were at the Washington Post, if you were at the New York Times, why didn't you reveal this? I know why you didn't. That's why I had to. That's why my name's on the marquee. So moving forward, the second precept of the Clean New Deal, like Bernie and AOC and everybody else who understands corruption and politics, you've got to get rid of Citizens United. We're going to do that with a constitutional amendment, and we're going to do that because we've got to think big. Let me ask however many people out there who are like, yeah, you can't do that because you've got to have 2/3 of Congress, you've got the filibuster, you got this, that, and the other. How many of you precipitated the notion of all things Doge by way of the executive presidency, and of course, all things Project 2025? Why didn't you see that coming? I'll tell you why. Because you live in a silo and you don't see the big picture and you're not playing the game that the big money plays. Now, I understand systems. I understand how big money plays. I've been in the game for a long time. That's what allowed me to get inside these truths to be able to wake your ass up, because that's why they're pissing on your head, telling you it's rain. Or in the case of, say, the shadow sector and funding politicians in the dark, how well does that go for people? Just as victims of P. Diddy's freak off, what happens in the shadows? They got gang raped. That's what's happened to the American people, taking the metaphor of the largest, rape in history by way of Epstein or, Weinstein or P. Diddy and everything else. But the long and the short of it is, as horrific as all of those things are, what we're revealing is what happened to tens of millions of people. We're talking north of 150 million people worldwide. They weren't just people in the housing industry. There were people that were involved with pensions. There were people involved with countries and also counties and everything else. This was global contagion that brought the entire financial system to a risk. To a stop. And ultimately, they paid themselves back to take over everything else, even though it was all illegal, because the Department of Justice did not do its job that enabled all things that we're in the midst of right now. Is it starting to add up? Because again, to recap, we got to create a new Glass-Steagall. We got to get rid of Citizens United. And then that leads us into the third precept, which is everybody always says, where are we going to find the money? I just told you we manifested $71 trillion out of thin air illegally over the course of 14 years to give to approximately 300,000 people in the financial strata, of which the top 0.001% got a lion's share of that money. Does it make sense that Elon Musk quadrupled his wealth during COVID and everything else that took place when sales were sinking? That's how this whole thing works. It's shadow based on pump and dump, but ultimately the guarantee of the Federal Reserve through these systems, through all of these apparatuses that go from asset management, too big to fail apparatus, hedge funds, private equity, and there's more. But I'm not asking you to get your PhD in that. I'm asking you to follow the bouncing ball, that it's just simply theft. And so when we are telling you that they got away with $71 trillion, that's a starting point. Do we have issues in education? Did Trump just decimate the Department of Education? Did he just decimate, air traffic control, and these guys had to work without a paycheck during the government shutdown and whatever's happening today? Have we seen, the actual, devastation to NOAA, National Atmospheric Sciences, right, and weather and so forth, and all sorts of research and development that this country depends on as a superpower, not to mention my favorite, NASA, have all been decimated by this insanity of this corrupt administration squeezing every aspect of this while filling their own pockets through billions of dollars of theft and fraud. And the fact that you're not in the streets every day and that we're not going absolutely ballistic is a question you got to look yourself in the mirror and wonder why you're not doing anything. Is it because you're fiddle-faddling with the latest and greatest Epstein story that doesn't get you closer necessarily to these truths that I'm talking about? The bottom line is we can rebuild the energy infrastructure. We can rebuild everything. We can create jobs projects. We can do anything that we set our minds to because we have fiat currency, The way it works is productive capacity, and you manage inflation by more people working and more people having more opportunity because they're working, and the value's got to come through regulation, people. That's where you have a situation where you manage hyperinflation. And we are not the Weimar Republic. We're the United States of America with unbelievable resources, unbelievable technology, unbelievable genius. There is nothing we can't do except we have to get rid of corruption first. So stop asking yourself how we're going to find the money. And if you're asking yourself that this is socialism, no, it's not socialism. What I'm explaining to you has been socialism for criminals the whole time. What this is a country investing in itself, and the ROI is going to come from everybody actually living up to our best version of ourselves, which some might call the American dream, because this is the plan to reboot the American dream. Moving forward, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We got to end qualified immunity. We've got to end presidential immunity. We got to end the electoral college. We've got to reset the table where the perverse inverse of this power grab by the minority to piss on your head telling you it's rain has got to end. We cannot have two sets of laws. For those of you who are upset about Epstein and why the rich and the uber rich can rape young women and get away with it, this is what we're talking about. But even much bigger than that. So lastly, we have to institute term limits for U.S. senators and representatives because as we've seen, Mitch McConnell, whether it's Pelosi and so on and so forth, you remember a few months ago when Mitch McConnell was on the floor of the Senate, basically standing lockjawed like he was a deer in the headlights because he's old. And he was there because he's got to sign the bill by his own cognizance, but he was being led there by someone and told to sign something for someone. And that's not dynamism. That's not the way new blood happens in the system. That's by not like Charlton Heston said when they were talking about getting new gun regulation. He said, not from my cold, dead hands. How do you like Nancy Pelosi being worth hundreds of millions of dollars when she was a senator with a salary of probably $250,000 a year, something like that? That's what we're talking about because this stuff comes from insider trading. Prohibit all insider trading for all members of the Senate, House Representatives, and the Supreme Court and administration's cabinet members. If they're gambling with all of the budgets that they approve, they can't front run to pad their own pocket by moving stocks. That's insane. That's corruption. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you start getting corrupt, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Braveheart out there. It's a flashback to like probably the 90s. Mel Gibson stars, as this, I'm trying to think of Sir Winston Wallace, right? Leading a revolution against that version's tyranny, which was Longshanks, King Longshanks. But there was a character that was the father of the character that betrayed Mel Gibson, and he was literally sitting there rotting because he was so corrupt. That's what happens to a society. That's what happens to people when you're corrupt. Imagine these young women, right, from getting pulled out of Mar-a-Lago to go get whatever from these like old, fat, disgusting men that were basically told to pleasure them. There's just something outrageously wrong with that picture. But again, that's just the entry point to the entirety of what the Clean New Deal is. And I don't care if you like Bernie Sanders or AOC or Zoran Mondani or Governor Newsom or the two governors that just got elected and so on and so forth. And of course, Governor Pritzker, and they've all got everything on their hands. Nobody has created a comprehensive, paradigmatic answer to the corruption that this country is in the midst of until now. It's called the Clean New Deal. And the only thing that can save us is us to collectively get our heads around this. Millions of us get around this to lift up the truth over this ocean of madness and lies. And when you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in integrity, dignity, decency, liberty, sustainability, and beauty, when we come together in unity, we will purge the misery of tyranny to unleash the renaissance of possibility. What say you, Roseanne?
What I say is, people, show your power. Stop listening to the lies. Do not Buy those lies because it's coming right out of your backside, baby. Don't do it. Crush corruption.
Can I add one last thing? Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I think that together we've made the case with as much enthusiasm as we can by speaking truth to power in a way that hopefully is going to penetrate somebody's bubble, right? Can you think to yourself after everything that we've just laid out, given everything that we've experienced, why someone wouldn't completely become enveloped in this initiative if they believe in liberty and justice for all, if they believe in the law, if they believe in equality, if they believe in sustainability? Is there anything that would have them go, I'm not seeing it?
There are many things. And before I continue, stop sharing your screen. And then I will tell you. Number one,
Okay, hold on a second. Let me push pause because I don't know exactly if I'm doing that correctly. Just give me 1 second, okay?
Patrick, people don't, first of all, people need to read. People are too busy. They're doing their jobs. They're involved in this. They're involved in that. They can't take the time. They're attracted to pictures more than they are attracted to words. They don't want to take the time to read and learn. But another very big thing in social media today, there is such a thing as they are the algorithms, the people who make the algorithms. They have throttled us down.
True,
And not only us, but anybody who speaks truth to power in the open and honest and verifiable way that we do
true.
get throttled down. And Egberto Willies in Texas should have thousands and thousands and thousands like us too. We should have millions of viewers. Do we? No. Why? Because people follow the the shiny object, the clickbait for the day. Okay? I don't do that. I go straight ahead.
Well, no, you're
Third,
absolutely right. See, we're using the platforms, right? That these guys have written algorithms, and they can amplify and they can de-amplify, like you said, throttle up, throttle down. And what I've noticed a lot on my feeds, for example, is you'll see, these characters. A lot of these characters, I believe, are actually made up, right? Like they're not real people. They're just some name that's
yeah.
connected with an image that looks like this, and they basically reflect and refract, and then they echo, what many times are talking points. For example, the DNC, right? And it's like, okay, how did they get that? What deal did they make with the people that created, these platforms? And I can tell you because of our experience, we were about hockey stick, information on X for a while, and then all of a sudden we got completely kneecapped, right? We were kind of slow starters. Then we got to a point where I thought we were going to explode, and then we got rug pulled. But that's of course because the algorithm,
We had millions on TikTok, millions, like
millions
6
on TikTok,
million,
right? And
and
so
boom, they
yeah,
took us
so
down.
you're absolutely right. And then of course the media consolidation, as many of you are aware, but as you know, I may as well bring it up. But like CBS, literally, which under the banner Paramount has one of the most respectable institutions, which kind of lost its way a long time ago. But I'll just talk about 60 Minutes, even though they've done some good stuff recently. Not the Trump interview, but some stuff that happened last week. But the parent company was part of a mega merger and acquisition that was involved with a company called Skydance, which is owned and operated by the second or first richest man in the world, depending on the day, a guy by the name of Larry Ellison, who, obviously the CEO, the creator of one of the largest tech companies in the world, an outfit called Oracle. And by the way, their largest client over decades has been the CIA, which there's that. But, he ultimately, through these capitulation of tall building law firms, through the corruption in Congress, through the corruption of the regulatory body, these billionaires steamrolled the scenario where they've just got more and more consolidation, and they're taking media into literally the land of Russia by way of state-run media or China. Okay, this is the United States, people. And the bottom line is, has media lost its way? Yes, for decades. But that's why we made the information that we did, to basically penetrate the darkness with these revelations of truths. And I apologize that I'm raising my voice. Sometimes the enthusiasm takes over to try to get your attention, to hold you on the line, to make you realize everything you already know. I know that 90% of the people that are watching this, if they stayed to the end, they're like, I thought this the whole time. And by the way, I get these comments on a lot of different places that I put our stuff, where people go, where have you been? How is it that I've not heard about this? And they haven't even seen our work, the con, right? They don't even, and they're like, wait a second, where is this information coming from? And so to your point, like I said, in my point, it feels like Groundhog Day in Harry Potter's castle or in Hogwarts castle, all of these crazy kaleidoscope of changes of trying to get inside your conscience so that you can like and subscribe and share, because as far as I know, that's the only way to break the algorithm. That's the only way to build a movement, but that's the way movements have always been built. So there's that. But the bottom line is, we've got to close this out. But I think that we got our point across today, Roseanne, in a way that is meaningful. Because, guys, there is no time to lose. Donald Trump has waged war on renewables. He's waged war on the law. He's waged war on the technology, science, this, that, and the other, only to use it for themselves and to suppress everybody else. Guys, this is the worst science fiction movie you have ever seen. And I know with every fiber of my being that there are millions of us that will not capitulate to this, especially if you have the information. If you understand how they did this, that, and the other to steal tens of trillions of dollars, to hijack the United States for a tiny fiefdom, to understand that all they really did was recreated the empire of which we were born to break the grip of. The whole purpose of the United States is antithetical to tyranny. And the fact that I'd even have to explain that to people is just absolutely absurd to me. But the fact is, I'll leave it to you for one last thing, and then I'll close it out. But I think we've really gone as far as we can with this particular recording to try to get people's interest and energy up, to hopefully like, subscribe, and share. And like I said, we're always available if you have any questions. Please, Roseanne.
Show your power. Don't doubt yourself. And from this 76-year-old woman, I'm going to tell you, the last 5 years of my life have made me thinner. I'm not kidding.
You look great. You look fantastic.
They have made me, I'm not kidding. I have people tell me this all the time. They have my face, my dental hygienist tells me how much my mouth has improved.
Wow.
I'm not joking around. This is not hyperbole. I can't do anything to tell my hygienist to.
So when you feel good about what you're doing and you feel empowered, it changes every aspect of your existence, doesn't it?
Of course it does. And I'm telling you, hey, okay, so I sort of see it, but people who haven't seen me in 5 years, 10 years, they look at me and they say, Roseanne, what have you been doing to yourself? And I'm looking at these people and they're like old and they got a walker and all this other kind of stuff. I feel bad for them. You don't have to ever get old. You know why? Because you look in that mirror and what do you see? I see 25. Patrick sees 25 too. Okay. I can tell you.
No, I mean, are you kidding? I'm more like my teenage years, man, with all of my rock and roll t-shirts and my attitude these days.
I'm telling you.
So not only that, when you have the truth, you're bulletproof, proof. But when you have the truth, you're basically drinking from the fountain of youth. How's that?
I'm not kidding. I sent him a song not too long ago, Michael Frank's The Fountain of Youth, driving around St. Augustine, Florida. Okay? I listen to I listen to music constantly. I am not kidding you. I want people to thrive, not merely survive. I want you to thrive and get better. And baby, it can happen.
I'm going to finish with this stream of consciousness because you've inspired me to. But this is kind of how my mind thinks every day. Okay, my friends, the Earth spins at approximately 1,000 miles an hour. We travel through space about 1,000 miles an hour. Everybody has the same amount of time to do what they do with the time allotted to them on this planet. This planet being one of, I believe, somewhere in the 400 million to 1 billion in our own galaxy. Obviously, our solar system, we've got 8 planets and then yada, yada, yada. But that's just in the Milky Way, right? And the Milky Way is one of at least 2 trillion known galaxies. Okay, that's what we've absolutely mapped out and we've observed. I'm always dumbfounded when I think about some of these statistics, right? Because in that grand magnitude of space, I think the universe is approximately 93 billion light years in width. A light year, I believe, is 300,000 miles per second. I want to say it's like 4 trillion miles a year, something to that effect. These numbers are actually mind boggling, right? And so when I think of those types of things, I'm like, wow, am I lucky to be alive? Wow, is it incredible that we have this society and this world and this vastness of space? And I assume that there's a lot of life out there in the universe, but to this day, we really don't have any, and I know a lot of people out there would argue with this, but tangible evidence, at least not that I've seen personally. But that doesn't mean I don't think that exists. I think it's probably a lot more common, but that doesn't make the value of life any less so. But when you put all of that stuff together, right? The fact of the matter is, as far as we know, my friends, all of it emerged from what we call the singularity. Now, this is what science tells us. I'm not a physicist. I, in my passing time, love to put my head into these things to get my mind off of corruption, quite frankly. But the notion of the Big Bang is that this infinity that I just expressed to you, including the dark space in between, which we call dark matter, and that's a real thing too, in between the light. But the way the universe expanded was energy. The entirety of the 118 periodic table of all of the different configurations of atoms that are the building blocks of the universe, they all came from the singularity, right? And the reason that happened was because what's in the first pages of the Bible or the Torah or whatever? It's let there be light. The notion is, boom, there was the truth, right? The notion is that it's energy. When you have the nuclear energy to expand, that's when light overcomes darkness. I use that all as a metaphor to hopefully inspire you because when you become a nuclear reaction vector to what we just laid out, people, again, the top 100 richest families on the planet aren't worth 10% of the $71 trillion truth that we gave to the system illegally to create everything that we're in the midst of. So is it important to understand Epstein? Yes. Is it important to wrap around the outrage of the East Wing of the White House being bulldozed? Absolutely. Murdering Venezuelan fishermen without any evidence and all of these things without declaration of war. I mean, this is just absurd. Not to mention, I could go into genocide and many, many other elements that I know are on top of people's heads. And it's so hard for people to try to just keep several different thoughts in their heads at the same time. But we can assure you, my friend, myself, Roseanne, and myself can assure you that until you take care of the corruption, the tumor of corruption, nothing else matters. We have to be the chemo of truth in this grand kaleidoscope of all these metaphors and these analogies. But it's you becoming just exactly what Roseanne Rabiola said. You have to become empowered. It really truly is up to us. Those of us who have an education, those of us who know how things are supposed to work, those of us who can recognize the treachery and the calamity of this tyranny that we're all in the midst of, and we all have to merge in unity. And I promise you, There is nobody out there that has the information we have. We're not trying to tell you we're better than everybody else. We're trying to have us all come together to grab the life raft of truth so that we can save, quite frankly, our society. And in the process, I think we're going to save the future of the world. I think everything is on the line right now. It's that big. So thank you. I love you, Roseanne. Thank you for everything that you did today. I love you out there that join us. And for those of you who keep your heads in the sand, you get what you deserve. And I'm sorry. For those of you who are ready to move forward, join us, and together we'll make history. All the best. Take care.